Good evening, everyone. Thank you for joining us this evening. We've got a full house in-house and we've got, looks like 37 folks zooming in with us. So thank you all for joining us. I would like to call this regular meeting of the Board of Education to order. There will be a special Board of Education meeting on Thursday, January 5th at 7 p.m. in the board meeting room. The next regular Board of Education meeting is on Saturday, January 7th at 8:30 a.m. in the board meeting room. Good. I apologize. We're starting a little late. The board has been here working in executive session since 6 o'clock. So seeing the full house here and also a number of people online. And I know there is a really neat heartbeat campaign, I guess, out there. Wanting to thank and acknowledge our great teachers and staff. So we appreciate that. But we're going to have to manage the meeting a little bit around public comment just to kind of make sure everyone understands, public comment is really tied to agenda items. And this is really a board meeting where we do the work of the board. All our work is done in public at the public table. So we're going to focus the first 30 minutes of public comment on any person that wants to speak with respect to agenda items, special ed and stuff that's on the agenda. We'll do that for the first 30 minutes. Then the board has to get to doing its work and getting the information around stuff that's on the agenda. And then the second public comment will continue. So with that, from a chairman's report standpoint, thank you all for attending this evening. I also want to do a thank you. The board and most of the administration was at the RTM meeting last night. Thank you for all the support. The board has worked with the Board of Finance and the RTM on the capital appropriation for additional security measures around school security. And there was also a conversation at the RTM around the SSO. So we'll continue to listen, we'll continue to learn, we'll continue to work with the RTM. And that process will also be looked at again as we go through the budget process. So thank you for our partners on the Board of Finance and the RTM. I think the other thing I wanted to touch base on is the ongoing conversation around material associated with curriculum. Again, thank you for the emails. Thank you for the phone calls. Thank you for coming and making public comment. I think putting the curriculum committee in place has proven effective over the last couple of weeks. We will continue to listen. I think it was a very productive curriculum meeting conversation around the process with which we listen to you. And we accept any challenges or we accept any information that you are looking for as parents around curriculum choices. I think what came out of that curriculum committee meeting was a discussion around what our policy looks like in terms of reviewing material associated with curriculum. So we'll continue to work through that. There was a lot of good ideas and a lot of good conversation. I'm sure Sarah will update us on that, around what are the right processes in place that make it feel like everyone is listening to everyone, and that we're going through the process, working with our incredibly educated professionals and looking at anything that comes to us that you feel needs to be reviewed from a curriculum material standpoint. So I think that process is working. We'll continue to listen. We'll continue to learn from it. When we come back, in early January, we will move quickly into the budget season. I know several of our partners have already started sending in some questions from a budget perspective, so we appreciate that. We'll move through the normal budget process. And then just on behalf of the board and the administration, happy holidays to all of you. Thank you for continuing to participate in our meetings. As I said last night, we have record participation in our meetings, and that's important. These are our students. These are our schools. You are our parents. We are parents sitting up here at the board. So we'll continue to work together. We'll continue to listen. We'll continue to learn, and we'll continue to move things forward. So it's much appreciated. But everyone, please have a great Merry Christmas, Happy Hanukkah, whatever holiday you're celebrating. I hope you do it with family. I hope you get some downtime, and I hope you all stay healthy. So thank you. With that, we will move on to public comment.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion to amend the agenda.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Sini. Motion.
I'd like to make a motion to amend the agenda to move action items 9B and 9C to right ahead of public comment, if we will, and that is possible appointment of Director of Security and the possible appointment of Director of Mental Health.
Great. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Is there apparent any conversation? All those in favor of making the amendment to the agenda? That is unanimous with all present. Thank you, Mr. Cini. Bear with me a second. Dr. Dad and Chief Krolikowski, thank you for being with us this evening and spending some time with us. May I have a motion to appoint Leon M. Krolikowski Jr. as Director of Security for the Darien Public Schools? Mr. Cini, second by Mr. Brown. All those in favor? That is unanimous with all present. Thank you. Chief Krolikowski, congratulations. I see you sitting there. Thank you and welcome to the district. Would you like to make a comment?
Of course. Hello, Darien. We came in your neighbor next door, and I'm thrilled to be here. And like I said, I'm thrilled to serve as Darien's Public Schools' first ever Director of Security. School safety and security must be a focused team effort that evolves, embraces best practices, and mitigates risk. Superintendent Adley's strong leadership and the Darien Board of Education's forward-looking risk mitigation mindset inspire me. I'm certain that the Darien School District will become a national leader for best practices in school safety and security. Ultimately, our collaborative work will make Darien schools safer, inviting, and student-centered. And one challenge I'll have is where I'm going to stand at the Turkey Bowl, but I'll figure that out. Thank you.
Welcome aboard, Chief. Thank you very much.
Clearly, they let you out of town this evening, so we appreciate that. And thank you for spending the time with us. Congratulations and welcome. May I have a motion to appoint Alicia C. Dad as Director of Mental Health for the Darien Public Schools? Julie Best, second by Katie Lublin. All those in favor? That is Cini, Best, Lublin, McCammon, Deneen, and Parent. Any against? Any abstentions? Sarah Worms abstaining and Dave Brown's abstaining. Thank you. Congratulations, Dr. Dad. Where are you? You're sitting there in the audience there. Thank you and welcome to the district. It was a pleasure meeting you earlier. Please, if you'd like to say something.
I just want to extend such gratitude and thanks for the time that you guys have given me this evening and all the way up until this point. I've thoroughly enjoyed learning about the initiatives that Darien has already taken around student mental health, and I'm very much looking forward to coordinating with your leadership staff, the town, the Director of Community Services. I'm really invigorated by the initiative that you all have taken in terms of meeting our students and our families and our staff mental health need, and I'm looking forward to being an active participant and hopefully a leader in the community around this initiative. So thank you and happy holidays. Thank you.
Thank you, Dottie.
Welcome aboard.
We will move on, Michelle, to public comment. I know our union president, Barry, is here. Would like to speak.
Thank you. My wife will be happy you're letting me go first. I want to thank the board for allowing me to speak tonight on behalf of the over 470 teachers in Darien that I represent. I'm sure it doesn't come as a surprise to any of you that the recent national publicity regarding our curriculum has acutely impacted staff morale. The misinformation and fear-mongering associated with this public conversation has been damaging to the educational process. Teachers do not have the ability to publicly defend themselves or correct misinformation, and we depend on administration to set the record straight for us. In the future, when these instances occur, teachers are hoping these falsehoods will be addressed swiftly and emphatically. I'm in agreement that there should be more stakeholder voices in the curriculum review process. Teachers, students, and parents can provide very valuable insights that should be represented when a resource is questioned. I think the amount of parents here tonight will say that many parents probably want to participate in that process. As a social studies teacher, I'd like to remind everyone that this board functions as part of a representative democracy and has established the appropriate channels for community members to participate in the democratic process in order to provide feedback. I cannot for the life of me understand how someone can go on national TV to complain about a board curriculum policy before they have ever attended a board curriculum or board policy subcommittee meeting. At best, this represents poor judgment. At worst, it's exploiting our children's education in order to score political points or raise public profiles. Regardless, this behavior should be called out for what it is and not be tolerated. Ask yourselves, would you want to work in a community that regularly accepts and normalizes these antics? Every couple of months since I've been the union president, there has been some sort of outcry or bashing of staff in this district, followed by an overwhelming outpouring of support from parents. I understand the majority of parents love the teachers and the administrators in this district and support the work we do. But this cycle needs to stop. It's not good. It is not good for the district. Teachers are leaving the district. It's hollowing out the district. And worst of all, it's bad for our children. So I'm asking, be adults, be mature. If you have a question about a resource, ask the teacher how the resource was used. There is no such thing as a perfect resource. It's about how you use it. If you want to, you could find a flaw, or if you can look for something to complain about in any resource we use. So please be an adult, do what's best for your children, and follow the appropriate channels to address your concerns. Thank you.
Thank you, Barry. We'll move on to anyone in the audience, public comments specific to the agenda this evening.
Hello, good evening. My name is Megan Watros. I live at 155 West Ave, and I'm here tonight because there has been a breakdown in trust with this administration, and I'm concerned that my opt-out, the family life education, will not be honored. And I want to be clear, I'm here tonight advocating for my 5- and 7-year-old children. This conversation has never been anti-teacher. It has always been a conversation about the age appropriateness of gender education for elementary school children. My family and I, we support the teachers in this community. We always have, but I have a responsibility to protect my children from inappropriate material. So yes, I am going to be an adult and I'm going to stand up for my most important thing in my life. And those are my 2 kids. So I just want to be clear here. I'm concerned that this administration's definition of family life material is going to vastly differ from what parents would consider family life education. When it comes to sensitive topics, there should be no gray area. How can this administration be trusted when they repeatedly denied the theme of the book, Julian is a Mermaid? They should not be permitted to use books that are clearly marked as gender identity with a clear theme of gender identity, then claim a different lesson was used. That does not make sense. And we are talking about 7-year-old children. And all I've been saying this whole time is it's not age appropriate. If you want to bring these topics up, you can wait until a child is a little bit older. I think middle school would be an appropriate age, but 7-year-old, no, it's not appropriate, not for my 7-year-old. Parental consent should be required for all content that is classified under family life education, including sexual education and gender. You have a policy. If something falls under family life education, which includes sexual education and gender, you are supposed to have parental consent. You never had my consent to read this material to my daughter. So I'm asking this board to hold this administration accountable, to require transparency and parental consent for any material. There should be no gray area that would be considered family life education. So I've spoken to a number of families who agree and they want the same. And you want to know something? You know what I hear? I hear that people are afraid to speak out publicly because of the intimidation, the bullying, and the twisting of the narrative. Because everything the gentleman just said before me, that is a twisting of the narrative. There is no anti-teacher movement here.
It's not appropriate to yell at the board. All
I'm
right,
not
I
trying to
understand
yell. These
You're-
are my kids and I'm passionate about it.
I
So for me
understand
to
that,
be accused
but
of
you're
things
not
is
going to
inappropriate.
yell at the board. You can deliver it in a professional tone. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Catherine Botel. I live at 11 Parsons Walk with my husband, James, and my 3 kids. And I'm privileged to say all 3 of them attend Royal Elementary School in our community today. I've never given a public comment before. I feel very much obliged to do so today. And I apologize for not entirely following your rules, but I'm going to definitely keep to my time. I'm speaking up in support of our curriculum, in support of our schools, and also in what feels like increasingly a position of being a member of a silent majority. I want to say first categorically that I support the inclusion of Jessica Love's book, Julian is a Mermaid, as part of our social and emotional learning curriculum. It's an innocent, universal story about acceptance, and I'll say no more about that here. When I asked my son Tobin, to whom the book was read in his class, what the book was about, he simply said it was about a boy who wished to be a mermaid and his grandmother supporting him in that, and that made him happy. So, why are we here? 2 months of scary echo chamber critiques and politics that have escalated all the way up to national media and right-wing terrorist organizations. A few minority critical voices have dragged our community into the limelight and have taken the time and goodwill of many of you, of our teachers, our school administrators, our PTO members and leaders, to really focus on a view that is not represented by the majority of parents living in Darien today. After I spoke up in support of this book, the majority of class parents in our class spoke up in support for me. We bought our teacher flowers. We comforted our administrators. We reached out. The support has gone beyond our class, beyond the grade, beyond our school. We are all supportive, and we are dumbfounded by the nature of this critique and the way it is being expressed in a community that we love and cherish. Surely, teaching acceptance to our young children is more important than drawing critique from the Proud Boys. How can we not agree on that? It's time to say thank you, and frankly, it's time to say enough. You have our full support. It's time to come together as a community that we all love and have chosen to bring our children into. Disagreeing is okay. Asking questions is okay. You've made more than enough opportunity for us to do that. But bringing hate and fear into Darien is not acceptable. It should not be tolerated. And maybe there's a story we could all read that would teach us about that. Thank you.
Thanks for speaking.
Excuse me. My name is Paula Sordoni, 15 Tower Drive. I would like to thank the administration for the wonderful job they have been doing in focus and in the acceptance message that we should, and I'm all for to teach our children. But I would like, me as a parent, as a taxpayer, I would like to ask for more transparency, transparency from the curriculum and the materials that are being used for our kids, and the input when it comes to the handling of politically charged ideological topics in our schools. There should be more caution in exposing our children at an inappropriately young age to ideologies that aren't supported by a clear scientific and societal consensus. This is important to many families in Darien, especially since this administration has failed to earn the benefit of the doubt on these issues from us parents. So I would like to have more transparency. I think we have been a lot of surprise, a lot of questions that come from my children, from stuff that I have not learned in school when I was in school. Thank you.
Thanks for speaking this evening.
Sorry, I need 1 second. I'm in week 6 of health issues. I need my adaptive tech.
Just make sure you move the microphone to
I will.
as close to you as possible. Thank you.
I'm now in week 6 of chronic laryngitis. My voice isn't yet strong enough to talk for close to 3 straight minutes, so I'm using this text-to-talk reader. I'm Abigail Hornstein of 17 Edmund Street. I'd like to talk about 3 intertwined issues in this town and our surrounding communities and make a suggestion for the board to consider. The issues are: 1. Mental health. 2. Student, teacher, and staff safety. Although I do note that this is usually expressed only as student safety, and I'm broadening it. 3. Living in diverse communities and worlds. We typically compartmentalize these issues as being separate from one another, or we argue that each is a reaction to the others. I'd argue that both approaches are wrong. These issues are conjoined. They reflect students, teachers, and staff wanting to be safe and respected. These 3 issues share a common genetic link, an expectation that we listen to each other with open ears and hearts and build a caring and compassionate community. That is what the teenagers begged you to do with tear-filled eyes 1 year ago, October. That is what numerous others, including myself, have repeatedly asked for at various board meetings. I urge you to listen to what our children are saying. Students who feel they stick out in any way are othered and not respected. If we can help them feel accepted and loved, then we will have built a community where any child, of any background, can get support from trusted adults, and where the trusted adults will know they have the respect and support of the entire community. Do we really want to continue having record high faculty and staff turnover year after year? If yes, go right ahead with curriculum review that demonstrates consistently you may not fully support them using established accepted curriculum. Calls for transparency are not necessary, as the administration has earned our trust. Do we really want to have a revolving door of high school students coming here with tears in their eyes every year to say they face discrimination and harassment because of their intrinsic characteristics? If yes, go right ahead with curriculum review and the tacit endorsement of discriminatory speech and behavior. Please have the moral spine to tell our community that curriculum review is not done in response to every garbled rendition of school activities relayed by elementary school students. Rather, it is done on a predetermined calendar so that all participants have adequate time to prepare and do a diligent job. Numerous recent surveys have shown that there are profound divides on numerous personal characteristics between people of what I'll call our generation, meaning us as the adults in the room, and those of the subsequent generations. While the number of people in our age cohort who identify as non-heterosexual, non-cisgender is small, the number of people in the next age cohort who so identify is profoundly larger. Until the generational gap is minimized, we are likely to face anguished cries for help from parents who cannot accept that the world they grew up in is gone. Please have the moral spine to recognize that sometimes the quietest voices in the room are quiet only because they belong to smaller groups or groups that are clearly not in political power. So the number of queer youth who will out themselves by standing at this podium, with or without tears in their eyes, will likely always be tiny. But their small numbers do not in any way weaken their cries for help, representation, and partnership.
Thank you. Thank you for indulging that. That's how I taught for 6 weeks. Thank you.
Thanks for using your technology.
Good evening. My name is Megan Thornton and I live at 49 Birch Road. I'm currently the PTO co-chair at Oxbridge and a parent of 2 children with IEPs. I spoke at the last meeting to discuss the need for more staff to help our special ed community. I would like to thank the board for listening to my comments and for all the support we have received from parents, staff, and administration. I would especially like to thank Dr. Forshaw for his continued support of the special ed community. The need for extra staff for special education is paramount and should be included within the projected budget for the 2023-2024 school year. The budget should also allow for staff to be hired as soon as possible for the following year so that seats are not left vacant at the beginning of the school year as what happened in the beginning of the current school year. This left many of our children without a special education teacher and without the assistance of a paraprofessional, which are crucial for many of our students to ensure a successful experience at school. At Oxbridge, we have reached out to our special ed parents and requested feedback on their experiences within our special ed department this year. We asked about their positive experiences with the department as well, and areas of concern. Our 3 very dedicated special ed reps want to promote positive change and discuss problems or concerns from parents that may arise. The main concern that we have received at Oxbridge from the parents of children who receive services is the lack of communication regarding missed services. One parent actually said that their child had missed 20 sessions so far. Parents should be given a service log that details when their child will be seen, by whom, and for how long. This should be just like a daily schedule that homeroom teachers give out in the beginning of the school year. We know that there are times when service providers or students are absent, but we need a more robust and transparent method of tracking missed sessions. This will also hold everyone accountable and parents won't feel a sense of mistrust within the special education administration. One option is to institute a district-wide threshold for missed services that triggers a direct communication between the school and parents or guardians. For instance, when a service provider misses 3 sessions, he or she would be required to notify a parent or guardian regarding the number of missed services, as well as a proposed plan to provide makeup sessions. When services are missed, it is crucial that parents and guardians are part of the discussion process as how compensatory services will be delivered to the student. This will ensure that sessions are made up in the best way possible for each student. Missed services should not roll into summer school, but should ensure that each child is caught up in the moment, ensuring an optimal outcome for the student. To summarize, our school community has expressed a feeling of being excluded from crucial information regarding service delivery. The burden
You're almost at time.
should not be on parents and guardians to seek out the information, but it should be clear and transparent protocol for tracking services. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for speaking this evening.
Good evening. Can you hear me?
Yes.
My name is Autumn Robert, and I reside at 7 Whaling Road. I'm the parent of 3 Tokenique Elementary students, and I serve as a member of the Special Education Committee at Tokenique. I am also terrified of public speaking, so bear with me, but I find it necessary to stand here this evening. In the spirit of the season, I would like to express my gratitude to our board, to our administrators, and to our educators for their tireless efforts on behalf of our children. We appreciate you. As you are aware, Tokenique School has been without one of the 2 psychologists since September. This means that 1st, 3rd, and 5th grade students have not been receiving services. To give you a sense, on average, each psychologist has 25 students, closer to 30 if you factor in SRBI students needing support. To date, if a student has a 2 times 30 minutes in a 6-day cycle, they have missed at least 19 sessions. We were surprised to see in the presentation that a part-time psychologist has been contracted to address the vacancy at Tokenique. We have not been made aware of such a plan. Our assistant principal has been an amazing communicator and partner with parents. She has made a valiant effort to support the students and the families in our community. We ask that you please treat this situation with urgency. Thank you.
Thanks for speaking this evening.
Good evening, John Dunn, 175 Raymond. I'm a proud member of our district's DEI committee, but tonight I'm speaking only as a concerned parent, one of many in town. I wholeheartedly support our teachers and students, but I do not support this administration continuing to use a book with some of our youngest students that unequivocally promotes gender identity themes while telling parents it's not used to teach gender identity. It seems like for this administration, even if it walks like a duck, talks like a duck, acts like a duck, and is tagged in the school library as a duck, they're telling parents they aren't talking about ducks. It's preposterous. Why does this administration have so little respect for concerned parents' intelligence and basic common sense? If this administration is going to continue to push their gender identity curriculum on 7-year-olds, I would ask them to be honest and transparent while doing so. Doing something so obviously like they are, and then attempting to blatantly mislead parents about the motives and rationale behind it accomplishes nothing. They are only letting down the community they're supposed to serve. If their goal really was acceptance, the administration would have accepted the feedback that this controversial book was wrong, and it was a choice that could have been worked out with parents to find an appropriate replacement that wasn't divisive. However, they have instead chosen to double down despite all the clear evidence before them. It must be difficult to create acceptance curriculum when you don't practice what you preach. In my view, after all of this, it's crystal clear the selection of the book was never about acceptance. I believe the administration doesn't care about acceptance. Instead, they care about pushing their agenda no matter how much division it creates or how much national media attention it generates for our small town. So many of us choose to live in Darien for the fantastic schools. My entire K-12 education was here in Darien Public Schools, and it was never like this. Once again, this administration is letting us all down. As we prepare to enter a new year, every Darien parent and resident should be asking themselves, is this really the best our town can do? I truly believe the answer is no. Our children and our community deserve better. It's past time for a better choice in this administration. Thank you very much.
Thanks for speaking this evening.
Mr. Chairman, do you want to go to Zoom to adhere to the half
We will
hour?
let this gentleman speak. Sure.
I'm Doug Kachigian. I appreciate the opportunity to speak. My default position is that all the parents and members in attendance here want, one, what they think is best for their children, and two, for other people's children, not just their own, to be treated with dignity and respect by their peers. I also sincerely believe that people who may disagree with me about the age appropriateness of certain topics, some of which even adults in good faith have difficulty satisfactorily navigating, are not hostile to my child or trying to corrupt him in some way. Curricular development and determining when to introduce complex philosophical, scientific, and social issues require ongoing transparency and collective reflection because the solutions are inherently imperfect and seldom obvious. One way to suppress meaningful and civil dialogue is to frame a nuanced issue in a binary way through the lens of something like compassion. Ideas generated by people deemed to lack compassion are not worthy of being heard. Weaponizing compassion delegitimizes and discredits people who fundamentally see the matter at hand as a parental discretion issue, their immense and unwavering reverence for teachers notwithstanding. Every patient here wants to raise tolerant, emotionally intelligent children, but no parental or political tribe is uniquely adept at how to effectively do that while managing other important developmental considerations. COVID is a great example of a policy discussion that was moralized to the detriment of children. For 2 years, children were the collateral damage in their trusted adults' culture war over public health symbols. Outside of schools, parents may read whatever books they want to their children at any age. There are many topics that aren't controversial or politically polarizing that I, for one, would like to discuss with my child before they are introduced in school. These include causes championed by both conservatives and progressives. I have read Julian as a Mermaid. It references relevant and sophisticated constructs like identity, authenticity, and the evolution of social norms. That it is not explicitly a book about compassion and tolerance speaks to its metaphorical reach. The question is, what is the appropriate age to initiate these types of abstract discussions and under what circumstances? Not whether these discussions are worthy of our attention or our children's attention. Parenting is difficult, hence I am generally in no position to tell other parents how to best raise their own children to become caring and considerate people. I hope that in the face of uncertainty, which seemingly characterizes the situation here, other parents will extend that courtesy by supporting an ongoing, transparent dialogue about mandatory aspects of the curriculum, and by not conflating parental deference in elementary school with lack of compassion or ingratitude for the incredible teachers who serve this community. Thank you.
So I didn't catch your last name and your address. Can you say that again? Sorry. Are you a Darien resident?
Thank you. We're about halfway through our first 30 minutes. Michelle, is there any hands on Zoom?
At this moment, we have one hand. Miss Alicia Johnson, you are unmuted and recognized.
Thank you so much. Let me just start my video.
Miss Johnson?
Can you see me?
We can hear you, Ms. Johnson. We don't necessarily need the video. You're going to have to speak a little louder into your microphone, but please proceed.
Thank you very much for giving me an opportunity to speak. I am very sympathetic to everyone who's spoken tonight. I would just like to add one additional thing to the conversation, which I feel like this whole conversation about books and banning books, especially certain kinds of books, aren't really a conversation coming from a local community concern. I feel like we are being subjected to, in our town, to some sort of more national political conversation about certain kinds of books and banning books and schools. And it's frustrating as a parent. I would like to, if we can, redirect the conversation back to our schools, away from the, sort of the right-wing echo chamber about banning books, and get back to supporting our teachers and education for all of our students. Thank you.
Thanks for speaking.
Ms. Johnson, can you share your address, please?
89 Raymond Street.
Thank you.
Anyone else on Zoom?
Yes. Do you want to do a few Zooms?
Sure.
Okay.
You have 4 minutes.
Miss Melissa Ullman, you are unmuted and recognized.
Alyssa, can you hear us?
Yes, yes.
Go ahead, please. Thank you.
Thank you. Good evening. I'm Melissa Dunn and I live at 175 Raymond Street. As a Tokenique parent and active Tokenique PTO volunteer, it was very disheartening to hear that the vice chair of the DTC was allegedly distributing political bumper stickers with this mermaid logo within the Tokenique school.
Ms. Dunn, that's not appropriate conversation. We're not interested in what the DCC did or so.
It happened at the school while
No, and
volunteering.
there was a conversation. There was a conversation with that parent, so we appreciate that. But if you could,
all right. Okay, we shouldn't be politicizing what's being taught to our 7-year-olds. Okay, thank you.
Are you done?
No, I mean, handing out paraphernalia is inappropriate.
That's fine, but let's not, I don't want it specific to any political party.
Okay, it's just wrong to hand it out at a school, specifically a school trip. So, you know, it's really bad. So I'm sorry. I'm happy that it's been handled, but I want to make people aware and we can move on. But thank you.
Thanks for speaking this evening.
Thank you.
Anyone else on Zoom, Michelle?
Meg Bat, you are unmuted and recognized.
Hi, my name is Meg Bat. I live at 2110 Post Road. And I'm actually going to deal with something that's probably going to be uncomfortable for most of you. But it's an elephant in the room, so to speak. So when I look at the Board of Ed, the makeup of the Board of Ed and the administration, every single person on the board and on the administration is white. Now, understanding that obvious fact, imagine if I, a woman of color, was having a discussion with you, and during our conversation, you disagreed with my point of view and proceeded to explain why. How would you react if my immediate rebuttal to you was to accuse you of racism? You and I both know it's an asinine comment, but in this day and age, that charge is so easily swung at people, especially in these types of scenarios. It's such a paralyzing accusation, there's no way to respond to it. So instead of having a constructive debate on a particular topic, I'm now listening to you feel compelled to defend yourself from a baseless accusation. So the issue I have tonight is that something along these very lines is happening in our community right now. A short while ago, and she spoke tonight as well, a visibly upset parent expressed her concerns about material that was read to her child's second grade class. And what has since followed are accusations towards her and other parents who believe the same of being anti-LGBTQ and anti-teacher. This is just name calling, but ultimately it achieves its goal, which is to deflect from the initial query. So we need to be very clear about something. Raising concerns over material that's presented in class does not equate to someone being anti-teacher. Questioning the value of introducing topics that we as a society don't even fully understand yet to a very young audience does not mean you're anti-LGBTQ. And when no one stands up to illustrate how damaging and unfair these comparisons are, when there is no one in a leadership capacity to combat this destructive narrative, then all we have left are a bunch of name-calling adults trying to compete for who belongs to the greater marginalized group. The responsibility of the administration is first and foremost to the children of this district. It's not just to the children of parents who align with you politically, but all children. All children love their teachers. No single party should have a monopoly over teacher appreciation. No single party should have authority over curriculum. Political agendas should have no place at school. And I realize it was addressed earlier, but having someone come to the school during school hours offering political paraphernalia that suggests that only one party supports the school should not be condoned. This is within the purview of the administration. You are tasked with setting boundaries of what can and cannot be conducted at school.
You're at time now. Thank you. Thanks for speaking.
Okay. Thank you.
Anyone else on Zoom, Michelle?
Dawn McDonald, you are unmuted and recognized.
Hi.
Can you hear us?
Yes, sorry. Hi, I'm Dawn.
Make sure you speak into your speaker. Thank you.
Hi, I live at 174 Mansfield Avenue, and I'm a mom of Royal students and have been for many years. And I just want to say that in my time at Royal, I've never had any problems with the teachers and administration. They've been very responsive and reasonable. If any issue has arisen with my children, whether I bring it up or if it comes up at school. And as far as the book, you know, whether you like the book or not, you're entitled to your opinion. But don't confuse your opinion of the book with your opinion of the teachers and the administration. And people are saying, just because you don't like the book doesn't mean that you don't support teachers. But it was said on national media that the principal and the teacher berated, you know, the mom and screamed at her. So that was said, and they feel under attack. And, you know, I just think it's important to say my account in all my years at Royal, I've never heard of this and I've never had these experiences. And if we don't respect our teachers and thank them, we're going to lose them and we're not going to be able to recruit new ones. That's all. Thanks.
Thanks for speaking this evening. We're going to pause there on public comment and move back to the agenda. We will have public comment at the back of the meeting. Also, we've got a lot to get to, especially conversation and presentation on special ed. We'll move on from an agenda standpoint to the superintendent's report. Dr. Adley.
Yes, good evening, everyone, and thank you for your attendance, both online and in person. I'll be brief. As I shared yesterday with the community, there was an article in the Hartford Courant about school security. Just simply stated, one of the articles, the quotes was attributable to someone else other than myself, and that retraction has been issued. Thank you to our parents for supporting Special Education Day. That was on December 2nd. We appreciate your acknowledgement and support of our special education staff and students. The press release regarding our two directors will go out tomorrow. We're thrilled to welcome our two directors to Darien. And thank you to the board and the members of the community for your support. Thank you for your participation in parent conferences over the last couple of weeks. And tomorrow night is the ELP over at Oxridge. It's nice to see there was an over to Oxridge. If you haven't had a chance, catch some of the school concerts. As I said in my communication, they're you want a little bit of a holiday cheer, you'll get them right there. Henley was today, the rest of them will be the rest of the week. I think the high school tomorrow, middle school Thursday, and the elementary school spread out through Friday. Thank you to members of the board who attended the legislative breakfast for Fairfield County. The topics there included fully funding advocacy for fully funding special education, K-3 reading, and also working on to support teacher shortages and also support mental health issues. Since our last update regarding mental health, the district has been working on post-prevention and prevention methods. This is included for post-prevention counseling, support for the wellness center, prevention strategies such as the 9th grade ADL, budgeting for mental health, SEL screening at K-8, ruler, and the support of the CDSP of bringing Mark Brackett to speak to our parent presentation on SEL. And a lot of the work has been done in interviewing and hiring, as we did tonight, for our director of mental health. That has been a big part of the past month. So again, thank you for that. The superintendent's budget will be presented on Thursday, January 5th, as the board chair said, and Super Saturday immediately thereafter. There are a couple of meetings that are coming up. Curriculum, just to hear them quickly, January 12th, communications, January 18th, finance on January 19th, policy the 20th, and facilities the 26th. And I just wish a happy holidays to our students, our staff, our families, and season's greetings to everyone. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Adley. We'll move on to our student representative reports. John and Swaha, good to see you this evening.
See you too. Good evening. So the winter sports season has officially
Could you just
started.
pull that microphone closer to you? Thank you so much.
Problem. The winter sports season has officially begun at DHS, and the girls basketball team just won their season opener game against Bassick. And Darien High School had its National Honor Society induction for new members last night, which was exciting.
A few other announcements, trying to keep this short. The DHS library has expanded its student activities. There are now a whole bunch of chess boards and puzzles and games, which are really fun. I've seen a lot of people playing chess. Importantly, we have the Darien School District has a 2022 Congressional Art Award winner, Sarah Jackson, whose art is actually being displayed, I believe, in Washington, D.C. Separately, freshmen should start looking forward to the National Honor Society's Cocoa and Cram activity, which will be held on January 5th from 5:30 to 8:30. It's a good way to help them prep for midterms. I remember when I was a freshman, it was great. We haven't done it for a few years because of COVID, so we're going to be excited to get back to that. And finally, get ready because this spring Newsies is going to be playing. Newsies was just cast this weekend, and our first read through was today. So we're very excited for that.
And your role in Newsies will be what, John?
We'll be playing Davy.
I knew you'd be part of it. Incredible talent, and hats off to everyone in the drama, music. There's a choir recital, holiday choir recital tomorrow night. So thank you for that. We will move on to approval of minutes. May I have a motion to approve the minutes of the regular meeting held on November 22nd, 2022. Jill, second by Dave Brown. All those in favor? That is unanimous. Thank you. We will move on to board committee reports. Sarah?
So the curriculum committee met last Thursday, December 8th. Dr. Alley just shared our next meeting was supposed to be the 12th. We had to postpone that, so we are working to reschedule. We discussed developing a policy around challenging instructional materials, which we just heard a lot about. We will talk more about that later tonight. We discussed extensively the K-3 reading program, what it is, how it's evolved over the years, and how we as a district are responding to the new state legislation concerning K-3 literacy. Currently, the district is in the process of exploring applying for a waiver and exploring that process so we can continue what we're doing as the administration does feel that what we are doing in the district is meeting the needs of our students. The last topic was more conversation about the new course proposals at DHS, which we will also be talking about later tonight.
Good. Thank you. Good work on that committee. And thank you for all the parents and all that participate in that and bring ideas and comments to the meetings. Any other board reports? Julie.
The communications committee met last Friday, December 9th, and we adopted our following committee charge, which I will read to the board, if I may. The communications subcommittee, the purpose of the communications committee of the Darien Board of Education is to A, support the Board of Ed's function as liaison between the district and the community. B, promote efficient, effective, and varied methods of communication among all stakeholders. And C, work to align all communications with the BOE's roles and responsibilities, district strategic plan, vision of the graduate, and district board goals and other guiding documents. We had discussion around this for a few meetings, and I think we all feel pretty good about where we've landed on that. So we're excited to move forward with our charge, well defined. We had some discussion about a preliminary timeline that leads us to a sort of comprehensive communications plan by winter of 2024 with some research, some fine tuning, an inventory of communications as some of the pieces that we'll work through to get there. Stay tuned. You will hear from us at some point. We will be asking input from you all as we do inventory our current communications. And we decided we have a communications plan template that we like that we'll work with. Sorry, that's what we will share with you all moving forward. And
I think we're on. That was so weird.
We see you, Michelle.
It seems we are back on.
Okay, thank you. It's some folks need to leave for a moment, but we'll keep going. Board committee reports, Jill.
So the HHRBC is thrilled to report that all of the materials for each of the 3 school renovations were submitted to the Office of OSC GNR. What is that, Alan? Office of School Grants.
Construction and school grants.
Construction and school grants. Thank you. In time for the December 1st deadline, which is thrilling. So we should be on pace to hopefully receive some reimbursement. The OSCGNR has been here for a walkthrough. There have been ongoing conversations with the department, and so we are in close contact. Additionally, we are finishing our design development phase, and so we will be back to the board in early January with the next stage of design for your approval. So stay tuned.
Thank you, Jill, and thanks to Chris too, your co-chair there, and thank you to the Board of Finance, the RTM, and the subcommittees of the RTM. They really worked their schedules for us to meet that deadline of December 1st, which is an important deadline. So thanks to all our partners working together with us on that. Any other board committee discussions? Good. We'll move on to presentations and discussions. We have an update and discussion and possible action on Connecticut Green Bank's proposal for the installation of solar panels at Ox Ridge. Mr. Monrette and Miss Emily Basham, Senior Manager, Connecticut Green Bank. Kevin, good evening. How are you?
I'm well. Good evening. Thank you for having me. In your packet this evening is the memo, which highlights the agreement to enter into a power purchase agreement with the Green Bank. This dates back to a year and a half ago, which we entered in this agreement. And due to the construction and redesign of HHR, we have the need to pause on solar for those 3 schools. But with Ox Ridge Phase 1 complete, we can actually move ahead and sign that agreement now. So the memo has the highlights and talking points, and Emily's available virtually should you have any Green Bank questions this evening.
Great, thank you. I'll open up to board questions. Mr. Seen.
So one of the questions that came up at a Board of Finance meeting was signing a long-term contract, and I gather that has been remedied now with the Board of Selectmen approval. Is that correct?
Yes, that they have given us the permission to sign that. Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
I know I've been part of some conversations along with our attorneys that Kevin and Dr. Adley worked with Town Hall on that. And then also we've worked with Connecticut Green Bank with respect to the capital projects and the construction and the changes associated with the roofs on HHR. It's kind of played out. They've been very accommodating. They have supply chain issues themselves. So from a timing perspective, I think this has worked out a little bit. Ox Ridge is on schedule in terms of the main academic building. So it's a good place to start and move that forward. And I just asked Kevin and Dr. Adley, you could just keep us updated as we go along if anything changes with Connecticut Green Bank, but they've been good partners to work with through this process.
Good. Just one more follow-up. Kevin, will we get some learnings by implementing Ox Ridge before the other buildings, best practices, installation, know-hows, all that good stuff?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, it's interesting. It's a good question, John. I participated in an HHR committee meeting and a little in the weeds, but good questions. But they even discussed what are the costs associated with readying those buildings for solar, and are they actual line items, and just to get a handle as to what the costs are. And they're nominal. I mean, they are part of the specs, but it's more or less routing specific electrical outlets and lines to the roofs.
Correct.
Kevin,
very similar to how we designed Ox Ridge, where the building committee oversaw the ability to connect the solar panels at a later date.
Yeah, good. Thank you. Dave. Sure. Any other questions? Jill. Thanks, Dave.
Just the project construction is listed as August and September of 2023. And I know it notes in here that there's the intent to work with the students and staff, but could you just talk for a minute about that timeline, please?
So Emily can speak
School
better
year.
to the timeline as far as supply chain, but the intent is to do the project over the summer and then hopefully have it wrapped up before the students return in September.
So Emily, could you elaborate on this coming summer timeline with respect to that will still continue to be a construction site in terms of the gymnasia, cafeteria, music, and Plan B, but just if you could give us an update.
Yeah, if you could hear me all right, this is Emily. The construction schedule or the project schedule as provided is really an estimate at this point. So we'll know a much more specific and accurate schedule once we sign agreements and submit the projects for permitting. And then we can provide a much more accurate schedule. The goal is to start and if not complete construction before school. I think we're all aligned on that being the most efficient way for us to do the installation. But we'll certainly be in touch as the calendar gets updated and work in coordination with the facilities and Kevin and the school staff to make sure that we're on time, on schedule, and working around the daily schedule.
Right. So I would ask Kevin, you just keep us in the loop as to any changes from a supply standpoint.
And we'll obviously work closely with ONG and the builders as they are continuing phase 2 of construction.
Good.
So that is something that of course, it's ideal that would happen before students get into the building. But if they do you have to work on a weekend? Or can it be done concurrently? What's the?
So this type of work is typical to be done during school hours. It's fairly noiseless to some extent, and we can work around the daily operations. And Luke would be a key component of that as well.
Thank you.
Okay. Any other board questions or comments? May I have a motion on Connecticut Green Bank's proposal for the installation of solar panels at the Oxford School? What's that?
Do you have to read the resolution?
So, Mr. Chairman,
Go ahead, Dr. Adley.
Mr. Chairman, the resolution that's before you, there's 4 blanks, and that would read the superintendent of schools. The contract has been reviewed by Matt Ranelli and stuff. We have seen it at the board before, so all that's done. This has simply given me the permission to enter into that agreement and sign on behalf of the Board of Education.
Okay.
So the motion would be to give Dr. Adley permission to how do we word that?
Well, you can waive, or isn't the motion this? And
Yes,
this would be
it. Yes.
Are we in agreement to waive the reading of the motion? That's fine. Everyone has read this. It's been in the board packet. So we have a motion to accept the draft resolution for approval of the Board of Education of Darien to install solar panels at Oxford School and give that authority to the superintendent. Jill, second by Dave. All those in favor? Thank you. All right. Thank you, Kevin.
Thank you, Emily.
Happy holidays.
Thank you.
Good night, Emily. Thank you.
Good night, Emily. Thank you. We will move on to the annual special education update. Mrs. Shirley Klein. Thank you, Shirley. I know you've got your stellar team here, so we appreciate that.
Good evening, members of the board, Dr. Adley, students, families, and colleagues. The 2021-22 and the current 2022-23 school years have been extraordinarily challenging for general and special education programs. The pandemic redesigned the focus and instruction in educational milieus nationwide and across the world. Shortages in staffing for certified staff, paraprofessionals, and related service providers prompted our current special education teachers, our psychologists, our occupational therapists, our physical therapists, to provide SDI and related services for students who were not on their caseloads. Special education teachers and related service providers in grades K through 12 utilize their prep periods and their lunch periods to provide SDI and related services for students pending the hiring of certified and non-certified staff. Their commitment to supporting students during these challenging times certainly has been humbling. And I know you join me in thanking them for their indefatigable efforts and their extraordinary successes. This evening's presentation on special education student services will provide an update on ELP and special education in grades K through 12 plus. Joining us this evening is Ms. Laura Straighton, Program Director for ELP, Ms. Kristen O'Reilly, Program Director for Elementary, and Dr. Scott McCarthy, Program Director for Secondary Special Education and Student Services Programs. Department structure. We just provided a slide to show you our structures in the elementary, ELP, elementary school, and our secondary school. Several of our members are here this evening. When you think of a program, and for those members, and they're here tonight, many of you know our continuous services, but just as an overall outline, understand that special education services, supplemental services, and specialized services, all of our students participate in general education. The purpose of special education programs is to provide access to the general education curriculum. And we do this by the provision of supplemental services and specialized services. And the continuum goes from the least restrictive to the most supportive. And when you look at our continuum services, you'll see our least restrictive is when students spend the majority of their days in their general education classrooms, and they can receive speech and language therapy as a related service. When you look at general education with supplemental services, in our ELP program, it represents 3 different tiers of supports. In our K through 12, it represents the majority of time spent in the general education classroom with supplemental services. This year, we initiated our grade 5 co-taught ELA classes. And also in our grade 6 through 12, we continue with our co-taught classes in English language arts and math. As we go on to higher level of supports, we look at our special education teacher and supplemental services, and we'll later speak to our K through 12 programs, our 6 through 12 direct reading instruction, and our AIM and core programs in our secondary levels support services. And lastly, as you look at students and how to support students accessing curriculum, we have our very specialized programs, and those are modified classes that again allow students to access the general education curriculum. In grades 6 through 8, we have our ALC programs, and in grades 9 through 12, we have our comprehensive classes. On the tiered level of ELP, we have our 16-hour program, our 20-hour program, and our 22.5-hour program. Again, the PPT recommends a level of services that are appropriate based on the goals and objectives developed by the PPT, and that determines the level of services students need. Our ELP program is an integrated program, and on Friday, for students needing an additional level of service, they receive service directly from a special education teacher and related service providers. Also, please note that on our related service and accommodations, students can receive not only speech and language therapy as a related service, counseling, OT, PT, and parent training, but we also have teacher of the hearing impaired and teacher of the visually impaired as well. When you look at our elementary school programs, you also have the opportunity for the same level of service, looking at the majority of time spent in your general education program, co-taught classes in English language arts, and our supplemental services and direct reading programs as well. Just to note also that, that the essential piece is that IEPs are reviewed annually, if not interim, and it's determined of what level of service students need based on their goals and objectives and their current levels of performance. Our specialized programs in elementary school, and this year they are housed at Oxbridge and there's still one class at Hinley, are really the opportunity for students who need a higher level of support to access the curriculum. And they may spend time with a special education teacher receiving their content area courses, English language arts, math, science, social studies, or they may spend time in the general education classroom receiving ELA, math, science, or social studies based on their PPT recommendations. Also, opportunities for socialization and generalization. In middle school, we have the same opportunity of services. We do have co-taught in English language arts and mathematics in grades 6 through 8. We also have direct reading and specialized resource rooms. And our specialized programs on the middle school level are our AIM program, as well as our ALC program. The AIM program really are students who are spending the majority of their day in their general education classes, and they come for their resource room or their learning center time in the AIM program. There's also staff with a special education teacher, as well as a paraprofessional, so students can check in during the day for social emotional support as needed. There's a place they can go to and an opportunity if they need some time to regulate or to compose or to work together at supporting themselves with support, they can go into the AIM program as well. The ALC really focuses on, again, access. Students in the ALC program may spend time in the mainstream classes as well for different subject areas, depending on their IEP. And they also have the opportunity to really work on life skills and vocational skills to think of post-secondary as they're moving toward those goals. At DHS and looking at a continuum of services, if you've looked at our programs, we have the same level of programs from related services to co-taught English language arts and our learning centers. We also have a core program which aligns with our AIM program, where students can check in for their learning centers or other times during the day. It's also supported by group counseling, and our comprehensive classes are taught by special education teachers in the 4 content areas. Program highlights. So in our program highlights, and we'll see a ELA, in the program, we continue to work with Dr. Margie Gillis and Literacy How. We've had a chance to share with you early on that we're looking at early markers and opportunities for how students are acquiring literacy skills. We're looking at building teachers' toolboxes and working with our youngest learners at acquiring phonology, morphology, and an understanding of language. We're continuing with our programs of everyday math, our social emotional year 2 of Ruler, using feeling words, continuing with the Michelle Garcia winner and many of our social engagement programs to really foster reciprocal language. And we also recognize that the intensity of support for ELP has been remarkable post-COVID, because many of our students and our earliest learners did not have an opportunity for socialization and engagement at that early age. So many of them are coming in right now and are first learning some of the social skills that they may have acquired in a more authentic way developmentally prior to COVID. We continue to train our staff, our paraprofessionals, our speech and language pathologists, our occupational therapists, and PTs on communication devices. For many of our young learners who are still using augmentative technology or PEC systems to really communicate, we continue to make sure that our staff is trained on the most current assistive technology, as well as some more, more not aged, but more classical PECs and different systems that are not technology, but are things that students can carry with them. Their images, their pictures, their picture word cards, so they can use those as well. In our elementary schools, again, we continue with our literacy program. We continue our staff training on Wilson reading programs, and looking also at the science of reading and working alongside Chris and Julie and making sure that our students are receiving the proper level of phonology and morphology in the acquisition of language. We're working on mathematics and this tiered level of instructions, using touch math for some of our learners who really need a very explicit form of mathematics in some of our specialized programs, and also working on Do the Math and Bridge the Gap. For language and communication, we continue to train our speech and language pathologists to make sure, again, they're current in specific training such as prompt, oral motor, and augmentative and alternative communication as well. We continue really emphasizing the social emotional behavioral learning and making sure that our staff is really trained on the areas of executive functioning, of PMT, of responsive classroom, and DBT to understand how students learn and are they ready to learn. We're excited about DLC program at Ox Ridge for our 3 classes and related services. We also have a state-of-the-art PT/OT room there that has really fostered expanding our practices within motor, both fine and gross. And we are excited to report out on our co-teaching implementation for this year in our 90-minute blocks. In our co-teaching, we've been able to start the year by making sure that our elementary school teachers had peer coaching with our middle school and high school teachers prior to the beginning of the school year. We've managed our ongoing team building between our general and special education teachers by using PLC time, by using technology, by using Google Docs, and other opportunities to communicate. What we have really discovered is that in coaching in real time, in addition to teachers working together, we've been able to use Christine O'Reilly has been able to really work with the APs in the elementary schools, as well as the teachers in modeling best practices in co-teaching and really looking at opportunities to really work together, both at those PLC times and also electronically to ensure that we're using the best practices in instructional methodologies and strategies. Year 2 of assistant principals. So for year 2 in our assistant principals, what we have found is this. Connecticut SEDS has taken up a great deal of their time, and we were hoping that we'd have opportunities prior to Connecticut SEDS to really have more time to do so many other things that they are really talented and would like to spend the majority of the time doing. We recognize as we become more proficient in Connecticut SEDS, we'll free up more time for our assistant principals. That said, they've been able to support the implementation of co-teaching in the general education classrooms with hands-on observations, with going in modeling and demonstrating best practices. They are the expert trainers at Connecticut SEDS. They continue providing ongoing support and working with all of the special education teachers, related service providers in their buildings. They also had to maintain the role. You had asked when we first switched from SES facilitators to APs, would we make sure that they were monitoring IEP development, compliance, and finalization? They have done that successfully and then some and continue to be responsible for fidelity and implementation with Connecticut state guidelines. They also have been able to facilitate ongoing professional development for both general and special education teachers. They're beginning their support for ESY planning and the development of groupings. They also have worked diligently with parent organizations throughout the year thus far and working on a parent coffee series for not only introducing topics like SEL and instruction, but as well as Connecticut SEDS. We know that we will continue to have new opportunities for their roles in supporting SDI instruction for both general and special education teachers in the classroom. And as far as our secondary program highlights, we continue in the same areas we spoke of. What we are excited about is our community outings. We've been able to, post-pandemic, reintroduce our community outings, our vocational programming, and really work with our students in our specialized programs to be able to go into the community and work on many of their goals and objectives and their generalization skills. As you can see in the district data, we've become pretty flat. We went from 876 students last year to 882 students this year. To keep in mind that that's an October 1 number. It doesn't become official until the spring of this year. But at this time, we realize that our classification rate has stayed pretty much flat this year. Our data collection on educational classifications also has changed. It's gone up slightly on autism from, I believe, 6.2 to 6.5. And the other areas still seem to have the similar levels within the areas of the other classifications. Staffing challenges. So although we know we recognize all the extraordinary efforts of our teachers and related service providers, we still have challenges. They haven't disappeared and we're still addressing them. Our staffing shortage and our school psychologists right now are being remedied in, as was mentioned earlier, actually in Tokenique and ELP, we still have 2 psychologists. Just to give you an idea, statewide, there are 38 openings in the state for school psychologists. Just within our area, there are seven postings in Fairfield County alone. And in those 7 postings, one district has 3 openings. We're not stopping at interviews. We're not stopping looking, and we use our resources for both OLOS and for both Apple Track. We know that we've tried to remedy by hiring. We have 2 contracted service providers that come in. We have one that's coming to ELP 2 days a week, Danielle, and we have one of our retired psychologists coming back and helping out both at Tokenique, and we also are helping out at Middlesex as well. We will continue to be diligent at looking for psychologists, but we will use all our creative ways to really support them as well. We've asked families to understand that we may ask to excuse some psychologists from PPT meetings after their initial 5 or 10 minutes so they can go back and service students. We might be asking some of our parents to recognize that we really want our children to get serviced with counseling. So we might ask them to come in and do evaluations after the school day and not during the school day to free up time. So we've looked for all creative ways to try to support our school psychologists. But please know that we know it is a challenge, and we will continue to meet that challenge and find creative ways to make sure that all our children are serviced. It also is true that when we can't meet their needs, we do log all our missed sessions. Those logs do have to be implemented, and we do use those times to make up sessions as soon as we have personnel to do that. We're being as creative as we can. We're being as diligent as we can. And we're hoping that we will be able to fill those positions, even knowing the extraordinary vacancies in the state. And we'll keep you updated on that as well. We've looked at caseloads and the mean for the caseloads. This again is an October 1 count based on our student count. As you can see, the trend in special education teachers, elementary schools, those are mean of the number of caseloads. It is 1212, and as you get to the high school, it increases. Speech and language pathologists, you'll see that also we're fairly similar in that. We do have, in Darien High School, we're appreciative that we have another additional speech and language pathologist, which has really brought that number down. If you recall, previously we were up to almost 40 students, so we're very appreciative of that. Our school psychologist is fairly stable as well. Realize how much of their time is in PPTs and evaluations in addition to direct service. Our social workers who work in our core program and our AIM program also work with children with IEPs and 504s. And our occupational therapists, as you can see, decrease as students go through up into secondary. PT stays relatively low on that level. So back to Connecticut SEDS. Just by introduction, we're doing incredibly well, continuing what the state is saying of how we're doing. Our staff is conscientious, diligent, and doing everything they can, knowing that the time to complete an IEP has gone from probably maybe 45 minutes to 2 hours. We recognize that. We're trying to be creative in terms of allowing time to do that as well. They have ongoing training, both electronically and from our support. Central office is supporting them, as well as we've peer coaching. We found that teachers can learn better in groups than by doing it with one-to-one tutorials. So they've been working and assisting each other. We'll continue with ongoing support. We will continue and work with the state, and we are confident that once we learn this system, and hopefully by the end of this year, if not sooner, we'll be able to manage this much more efficiently and with confidence. We're looking at continuing our parent coffee series for fall and winter. We're looking at many of our district-based parent presentations, which will continue. As you know, we do our articulation meetings for our parents as they go from grades 5 to 6 and 8 to 9. And we'll also continue to update parents on where we are in our Connecticut SEDS process. Positive note, parents have shared with us they're on the parent portal and using it successfully. And we are confident that once we know and are proficient in it, it really will be an improved IEP for students and families. And looking ahead, and when we have a chance to speak at the budget in the next few weeks, we'll know that our specialized programs are of great importance to us in terms of reviewing our instructional strategies, looking at the developmental needs of all of our students in our specialized programs, DLC, ALC, and Excel. And we're looking at instructional strategies, opportunities, as well as our staffing needs. We are really proud to say that our programs are robust. We have 21 students currently in our DLC programs, and we have 12 students in our Excel program and 7 students in our middle school ALC. So we know that we really want to look at our planning and instructional design for them. PD will continue alongside Chris and Julie for our reading curriculum in K through 3, looking at the science of reading. We'll continue with our professional development in Connecticut SEDS. We'll also look at some new multidisciplinary evaluation and assessment tools to make sure that we are current in our evaluation and assessment process. And we'll also put an emphasis on life course planning and transition for our 18 to 22-year-old students as they go through their post-secondary experiences. And in 23-24, ELP will move all 9 classrooms to Oxbridge, and we're looking forward to ESY beginning in Oxbridge this summer in their new location. Parent coffees will be posted on our website, and so please look for them. Also, varying from specialized reading instruction that just took place at middle school, those are posted on our website as well, to many of our DBT distress tolerance coffees and our academic coffees as well. Professional development continues for staff training. Also know that our school psychologists and special education teachers will be working on new assessments. We'll be working on Connecticut SEDS. Do want to focus also there with concerns about our robust program for our professional development for our paraprofessionals. Please know that they actually just continue social emotional learning with Dr. Chris Bogart this season. We at our November planned opportunities. They participate annually in training for OT, for PT, for reading, and for mathematics programs. They participate in our development for ruler as well this year. They're also participating in responsive classroom. Anything we ask our teachers to learn and our providers to work with our students who receive support by IEPs are required for our paraprofessionals to have those skill sets as well. So they are trained in the same applications, the same strategies, the same methodology our teachers are trained in, because we're asking them to help implement it and do the same training. We had extremely positive feedback on Dr. Bogart's presentation to them last month. Our glossary of our acronyms, there was only one added this year, which is the Connecticut's Special Education, Connecticut SEDS. The others you're familiar with. They have not changed. They are statewide and they are nationwide. And thank you for your time. And we're here to answer any questions you may have. And our program directors are here as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Shirley. Appreciate the update and the detailed information. So I will open up to board questions. John.
It's weird. I like the old way.
Mr. Sini.
Thank you. I guess 2 questions and are somewhat related. Today we got a communication from CDSB Special Education Subcommittee, and you talked about some of the challenges, but you started your presentation by saying extraordinarily challenging year, and we understand that with the turnover. But maybe you could talk about the communications, which is email largely talks about, and the challenges and the disruptions based on the just the challenging year, and how you're communicating that with parents, 1. And then 2, when you go through the caseloads K through 12, how does this compare pre-COVID? And I realize there's a number of numbers on the grid, but if you can just talk generally.
Surely. Firstly, on the questions related to how we've informed parents. Well, actually, it was actually CDSP really helped us in terms of some of the questions, which were, they let us know families didn't want to wait until we had those positions filled. They really wanted to know onset. We actually started with middle school and made sure, and that was really pretty early on, beginning of October, I believe, that said that when someone leaves, once we have, and Marge informs us that there is a formal resignation, we inform the family. At the middle school, it's the chairperson who does it. At the high school, it's the chairperson who does it. And on the elementary school level, it may vary. It's one of the administrators who will do it. It may be the special education AP, it may be the other AP, or it may be the principal. But they're notified, a notice goes out. Also, and I do encourage anyone and who really has someone of a child's not being seen or not receiving that, to follow the chain of communication. I believe that's true. And what I heard in that was people may not be responding quickly enough. Well, we have a commitment to respond within 24 hours, even if to say, I don't have an answer, I'll get back to you tomorrow. If that's not happening, please let us know, meaning our program directors. Let either Laura or Kristen or Scott or myself know that that's not happening, because that's not what our commitment is. So we now, knowing that parents didn't want to wait to see who's filled, we made sure, and we agree, by the way, we agree that that was on us, and that we started right away to let our families know if there was a vacancy when they were leaving, that we were searching and looking for someone. And as soon as someone was found, we sent out another notification. One went out from the high school this week, one went out from the middle school last week. So those notifications go out promptly. So I do want to share that we did respond to that. We appreciate the feedback, and we made sure that there was no delay in that.
And just
the
grid, yeah.
The second part, there's not really, we don't see it up, but we've added positions. You know, we've added a position in the high school last year for both what we did for speech, we did for psychologist and for special education teacher. There'll be more conversation when we meet on Saturday in January also of what's needed. So we did add that as well. I think that's pretty much where our status was. Sometimes when students move from middle school to high school, there may be a shift in personnel also. So we saw that also. We went to 18 teachers from 17 teachers in the high school this year. So you'll see that as well.
Katie.
Thank you. Shirley, thank you so much to you and your team.
Katie, could you just make sure that microphone's
sorry.
closed?
Yes,
Thank you.
Thank you all to the team. I know that you guys are under a heavy workload this year, and the new IEP is certainly not helping anything. So we certainly appreciate you being here. I have a number of questions, but to follow up on John's point, I appreciate you taking ownership of the miscommunication that happened before and taking steps to remedy it in terms of when we do have resignations. I think it's great to see that you understand that the parent community can be understanding when there are challenges, but that they do want to feel that they're part of the conversation. So I applaud you for making that change. However, my interpretation of what John's question actually was, and if it wasn't, then my actual question is more to the point of what I read in the email we received today from CDSP. And then again, we heard in public comment tonight, and that is that parents are not being kept abreast of missed services in a timely manner, or maybe feeling almost not even at all. You know, hearing that your child has missed 20 services for the first time seems like a breakdown in communication. And I would echo the question that was asked tonight about what is an appropriate threshold, you know, recognizing that we have challenges, but is it 3? Is it 5? And how do we have that conversation so that we have children who are keeping abreast of foundational skills and are not coming up with these big gaps and then these bundling of services in the summer, which, you know, might just not even be possible for some families. So that, I think, is the question first. What is the communication regarding those service logs, regarding threshold for missed services?
So there's not a number, although it's usually between 3 and 5 if there were a number, but there's not a number because there may be a child who receives speech every day, you know, if they 5 times. Every parent should be informed, and we are in agreement. Kristen and I will follow up on and I don't know if they've spoken with the school and Luke. We will follow on both Oxbridge and Tokenique. But our understanding is when there is a series of missed sessions, there is communication directly with the parent. Again, I don't know who the parent is, but I would ask them to call us directly. There is, if someone's missing 19 sessions and that's because we don't have a provider, then there would be a conversation between the administrator and that family of sometimes we use an outside provider. Sometimes we use a contracted provider that the family uses. So I can't speak to that particular family. I would ask them to call me directly and I'll be glad to speak with them. There are opportunities which we've done several times because we don't have a psychologist of using outside providers also. I would really encourage though, I don't know if they've spoken to Kristen or spoken to me, but if they haven't had responses promptly on the school level, please let them know that they need to call us directly.
I appreciate that. And I think that the chain of communication is definitely repeated often. My concern actually is that it's not an individual cases and that it might be a larger, more systemic one, because unfortunately, I have heard this from other parents as well in the past, even in years past, that they find out that their student is missing 15, 20 services at the end of the school year and they have to make them up in the summer. So, to the public comment point, if there is not a number of a threshold, I would suggest that maybe we consider having one. And part of the reason for this as APs at the elementary school was to ensure compliance. So that seems like a really good use of time. Just mentioning the Tokenique, I'm curious as to why we have parents saying that their children are not receiving services and that they're surprised to see in the materials that there are contracted services. Is it only some students are receiving psychological services and some are not?
So for the contracted services that we just started, it just began a week ago. So I don't know what the timeline is, but the person who's coming in to help out at Tokenique, Marion, actually just started last week. So they may have missed X amount of sessions and they're really, they've been asked to really make sure that Nicole is seeing all the students and that we're using the contracted person for evaluations.
That's been communicated to those parents?
I will confirm that.
Thank you.
Jill.
I have a statement and then a question. I think part of the missing piece that I'm hearing is that not only do parents probably want to understand that students have missed sessions, but they may need help understanding what is the process to make sure that those are made up. And that might be a little bit of the missing link from what I'm hearing. I don't know, not involved, but I would ask that as we communicate, we are not only say so-and-so is not in, but here would be your process. If you need
we are in agreement. Please know, just we're equally upset at missed sessions.
Yes.
Okay. Please know that every speech therapist, every psychologist, every OT are equally as upset.
Sure.
They truly are, because this is not only upset, but they're concerned if they're not able to see their children. So we share the same concern.
Sure.
And we also share the same understanding. I can't say if the number is 3 or 5, but we share the same understanding that every parent should be informed if their child is not seen. And every parent should work with whoever is informing them to say, here is the plan for the makeups.
Yes.
And if the plan, unfortunately, is we don't have someone to provide those services right now, we work together to find out, however, we probably can manage this.
And we're probably going to have to on an ongoing basis, because with constricted pipeline, coming out of schools and with early retirements, this is probably not something that's coming and going. So thank you for understanding.
I may add one more thing. We know that ESY, waiting to have it at ESY is not our choice. I mean, it's not like you can't postpone 6 months of services.
Right.
So we share that same frustration, which is we reach out to everyone. As you said, there's 38. We reach out to everyone we know. I've called everyone I know in Westchester.
Yes.
We call everyone to say, can we have some hours? We know that's not best practice, and not having continuity for services, we're equally as upset.
Yeah.
Please know what we can do better at, and we do here. If parents aren't informed at how many sessions are missed and what our makeup opportunities are, then that is our responsibility, and we will move forward at rectifying that.
Okay. I actually wanted to switch gears a little bit and talk about bringing your own device and whether or not, I know many of our kids with needs, many of them receive devices through the schools, others were bringing their own device. I wanted to know if the change in the model impacted the department in any way. No, it was seamless.
Very positive. It was seamless. Amazing. I mean, we also maintain different devices.
Sure.
So no one's covered, and some children need two devices. Some students have to use a Chromebook during the day and need an iPad. So they all have their devices. Lori has been vigilant on making sure that all the devices are taken care of.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you for asking.
Julie.
I'm going to go backwards a little bit, but a different spin. I appreciate the candor and the discussion around how hard it is to fill some of these positions, and how widespread that trouble is. I guess what I'm wondering is, are there ways? We're so incredibly lucky that we have these indefatigable, I love that word, professionals who are willing to be creative. We need to get you a new microphone. Thank you. Be creative and work with you all on making things work as best you can. But that's not sustainable either, obviously. And we're potentially creating our next departure, so to speak, as people burn out. Are there any other creative ways we can use resources to support those individuals who are now being overextended? Are there any other ways to bring in support staff, anything else that can take things off their plates so that we don't overstretch those who are so stretched right now?
I wish I had an answer to that.
The magic question.
I wish I had an answer to that. I think what we can do is, one, recognize all of our colleagues, recognize the extraordinary work they are doing. I think trying to ask families to help us understand that if we excuse a psychologist, if they're comfortable, if it's not imperative to the meeting, that we have them report out or ask questions and answer questions and then go back to their opportunities. The same with speech therapists and OTs. And, you know, I haven't even broached the subject, and Marge is very helpful with this. We also have maternity leaves. You know, we have other things that happen at the same time also. So when you're asking that question, we're thinking maternity leaves, we're thinking other things that happen, medical leaves, many things that happen. I don't know, you know, I don't know that there's a way to reconcile all of it because of the staffing challenges now. I think if we can look at our practices, as I said, families have been really cooperative. They're doing evaluations after school. That really takes time and gives it back to the school day. That's an extraordinary. We asked Dr. Kurtz from Fitch, who went over and did evaluations for Laura over at ELP, and did that. We asked people. One of our Dr. Williams from Henley went over and did some high school. You know, we're finding ways to ask people to share responsibilities and help out. However, I don't know other ways to do that other than in concert with families and helping us after school do that. Don't want to postpone it to ESY. We agree of doing that, but, you know, looking at opportunities of not services, but maybe some evaluations, looking at a later time, you know, seeing if we can postpone that or look at that. Our goal is to get services to students. And our goal, to your point, Katie, and to your point, Jill, is really to make sure that we have a mechanism to make sure parents are informed, and we're working better at doing that.
Sarah.
Thank you. A couple questions. I know, so you were saying that we are, some of the services are being covered by outside providers, whether it's family's own psychologist or whatever. Is there an additional cost for that? And what is that cost versus, you know, if the positions were filled, would it be?
There's an additional cost, and yet our positions aren't filled. So there's other dollars in the budget that they're not using for what would have been our certified staff being there.
Okay. And also,
although I know it's a different budget line, just so you know, I know that. Don't think I don't know that. Okay.
Trained her well.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
Specifically thinking about AIM and the core program at DHS, are you seeing post-COVID an additional need for that social and emotional piece? Have those numbers risen, or are they static?
The enrollment, I'll turn that over to Scott also. I think the enrollment is similar, but it's gone up. I mean, the enrollment has gone up on at the high school level, I believe.
Significantly so, or not?
Yeah. Stable.
Thank you.
Kara.
Couple questions. Are we looking to recruit new psychologists like right out of school psychologists, or do they not have the qualifications you're looking for?
So some of right out of school are very good, very interesting, you know, and some we know that we have interviewed several psychologists that we have not offered a position to because they're not the right match or the right skills. But we have been very fortunate getting some psychologists right out of school that are really talented.
Okay, great. Second question, not really a question, and not necessarily for now, because you probably don't have all the information, but in another meeting. I would love to know more about the planning, the life course planning and transition and what that really looks like and some more details surrounding all of that.
Be delighted.
And ditto.
Yes.
It's a great question. There was a great meeting last year that I attended that was very well organized up at the high school. And I think an overview of that meeting, and then whatever other questions the board thinks, please get them over to Shirley, because it's a good question. It's a good topic.
Okay.
So.
Thank you.
Katie.
Thank you. So and along with that, for the transition planning beyond DHS, and I understand the differences, but I also would appreciate annual updates on SRBI, 504, and Fitch. And I did just want to comment, partly to couch some of my follow-up questions. I noticed that on our agenda, it says that we were having an annual special education update, but the slide deck actually says that it's a program overview. And I wonder if maybe some of these questions can be answered in going more into an annual update versus a program overview. It's wonderful to be reminded of the continuum of services, but I think a lot of those things are on the website too. And I would love to see some data on outcomes for students that are in the special education community. I would like to see caseloads that are by hours, or even just high and low, I think would paint a much better picture. A mean is difficult. What if there's a teacher who has one student, right? That's driving down a mean significantly. So it would be interesting to know, especially as we talk about the pressures, the staffing shortages that we're under, what are our teachers really dealing with? Classifications beyond things like health impairment, learning disability, IQ. How many of our kids have reading and writing goals? I think that's especially topical right now as we're talking about, as an entire state, looking at what our reading curriculum is. I'd love to see that information. What are our numbers of outplacements? What are our referral rates? Who are they coming from? What are our staff certifications? So some of these questions lead to be specific, following up on the questions from my colleagues regarding consultants and overtime. How many staff are working overtime right now? And what is that cost? I understand that it comes into different lines, and that teachers might be, instead of at a 1 FTE, they might be at a 1.2, but our budget is complex and it's hard to find those numbers. So it would be nice to have that up front so that we can really get a sense of where our program is at what our staff are facing and what our students are getting. Professional development for general education teachers would be a wonderful thing to hear about. How are the students beyond just, their sessions with SETs? How are the general education teachers making sure that students can access their information and identify? I think it's important to note that, and I know that you understand this, but partly for the public that are listening and for our duty as board members to make sure that we are being accountable, I think it's important to note that meeting the obligation is, by putting coverage in a classroom, is not necessarily the same thing as meeting student needs and fulfilling IEPs with consistency and fidelity. And what I'm hearing from parents is not that they don't understand that we're in a challenging time, and not that they're not willing to work with the district, but that they feel that they don't have the information they need. And when you don't have information about your own child, trust erodes. So I would like to see us look at that more specifically, and work on recognizing the difference between coverage and services. We'll now get to a question. Thank you for indulging that. I would like to ask about ELP specifically and the dyslexia screening that was implemented, and any plans to roll that out to the elementary, and what our current support of students who have been identified as dyslexic is.
Well, I don't know what the second part of that question is. Just to go back to one of your questions, Katie, was a question, but in your statement, please know this also, that all of the professional development that's done, instructional materials in literacy and mathematics, special education teachers participate alongside general education teachers. So all the planning that goes on, that's not exclusive to general ed. To go back to our point initially, which is special education is a service. Our students are general education students in the general education programs. They get supplemental and specialized, so they participate in all the training for all of our instructional materials. For PD, the first part on ELP is we haven't implemented a screener, and Laura can speak to that. Laura is still working with Margie Gillis and Literacy How, but there isn't a physical screener. If you wanted to add to that, Laura.
So in assessing children, we look at indicators of early reading, which is, the sounds. And there are some early assessments that may lead. You can't identify a 3 or a 4-year-old with dyslexia. You can look at characteristics that maybe we need to work on. So we're not identifying children at grade 4 who have not been in kindergarten yet with dyslexia. We're just looking at, use the good word, indicators of or characteristics of early learning. And so a lot of the work we've been doing is around sounds and sound development and using the ear to listen and change and play with words. And that has been mostly the focus on that. But we do have some children that are 4.5 going into kindergarten, and families are worried about maybe they have a family history, but we're just looking at early indicators and pulling out those kinds of, we're not using a marketed early screener at this point in time.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Any other board questions or comments?
If I can just clarify on that too.
Sure, go ahead, Kate.
So my question was actually on what plans there might be to roll it out at the elementary school level. I understand that 3 and 4-year-olds are at a very different reading level, but our elementary school students are 5, 6, 7, 8, all the way up to 12. And those students are reading. So that was my question, actually, was not about how are you supporting dyslexic ELP students or identifying them, but what are our plans to screen and try to look for dyslexia in our elementary school. And then when someone in elementary school is identified as being dyslexic, how do we specifically support them from a reading and writing curriculum?
Perhaps the best way to respond to that is all of our reading programs, there's not a dyslexic screener that we're using, but in general education, the classrooms, whether it's Foundation or Hegarty, they're looking for sound, symbol, and phonology morphology. So the instructional materials that they're using are identifying how students are responding to those areas of literacy. When students don't respond to it efficiently or demonstrate skills that are supposed to happen at different benchmarks, they are offered SRBI, and SRBI works on specific areas of that phonology with students, and they have the different tiered levels in SRBI. When their kids are not responsive to SRBI, then a formal evaluation is done, and we use the instruments and the evaluations we use to determine if children are dyslexic or have dyslexic behaviors. We use standardized instruments such as the CTOP, such as Elysian, such as our Woodcock Reading Mastery to look at reading skills and development. So the tier would be, to your question, Katie, looking at our materials and scientifically researched methodologies we use in general ed, looking at our SRBI, and then looking at referral for evaluation. But there is not a universal screener that we're using.
Thank you, Mrs. Klein. Jill.
I wanted to talk about the elementary school, the 2 newish initiatives, the co-teaching and the assistant principals. And for each, I'd like to know, well, particularly for the co-teaching, are we staying with literacy? What is kind of the plan there? And then for the assistant principals, or for both programs, sort of what have been the challenges, lessons learned, opportunities? Just a little bit of this is very factual. I'd like to know some of the color around it, please.
For the color rounded, we are staying with literacy for grade 5, and we're not going to bring it in grade 4. We looked at our cohort of students, so we will be moving our incoming 5th graders. We're going to stay with our program in literacy in grade 5. For our APs, as we shared earlier, this has been a lot of attention on Connecticut SEDS. We're hoping to free up some time Because the notion was when we looked for our assistant principals to really do SDI instruction in the classrooms for both general and special education teachers. And they're looking forward to doing that. So we're hoping we'll return to time so they can access that and have that opportunity
Okay.
as coaches.
So next year, I would love to hear about some of the SDI that we actually do accomplish.
Absolutely.
I hope we can.
Thank you.
Any other board questions or comments? Okay. Dr. Adley, anything to add?
Yeah, it's sort of stating the obvious that it's been communicated by Shirley and our team here tonight, but particularly everybody on the ground. They've been doing phenomenal work, working as hard as we possibly can. I commend them on the shift and the change to new SEDS. That's been another burden. But I know it's sort of shallow in some ways, but we really appreciate all of their efforts for the staff, and I know the board has expressed that. And I just thank you.
So Shirley and Marge, I would ask Marge, is there anything, you know, there's the openings across kind of the marketplace. Is there anything that you need or that we can help you with to recruit these folks to the district?
No, you've given me a great recruiting budget just to answer the psychologist questions. We've been in contact with all of the preparatory institutions in the surrounding areas. They're just not graduating anyone. So we'll keep it up and there'll be job fairs in the spring.
Okay. I would ask that, you know, as you do, keep us informed. And then I would ask as we go into the budget season, let's be creative, but let's focus on ask what you feel you need. And I would honestly, when it comes to these services and special ed and delivering these services to our children, let's think about capacity and let's think about having the capacity to expand too. I mean, it's tough to say, but we'll figure it out. We're a well-funded district, but how do we get ahead of the game in terms of hiring? All right. It's great. We talk about caseloads and all that type of stuff. We're not the professionals, but, I'd rather, have the tough budget conversations and talk about dollars and cents and be ahead of the game so that we have the folks in place to deliver the services than constantly playing catch up. And I know it's an incredible challenge with the marketplace and just the folks that are out there and available to come to the district. And you do an incredible job of screening and bringing the right people to the district. But, whatever we can do to get ahead of the game, I'd rather you come to us and say, these are the people we need to hire. We'll figure out the dollars and cents behind the scenes.
Can I just say, one of the best recruiting tools that we have is the stability of the school district. There are districts where people live in fear every year that their job's going to be cut. We tell them that doesn't happen here. So I appreciate that.
No, I appreciate that comment, but thank you. Good. Jill.
In an offline conversation, Shirley, you were talking about what you think is really effective teacher appreciation. Would you be willing to share that here, that if we have parents or anybody who wants to say thank you to staff members, what was your recommendation?
A handwritten note. A handwritten note.
An old-fashioned
handwritten note is probably something that teachers really appreciate. If not, it can be electronic also, but there's something about a handwritten note that really knows that you took the time, you sat down and you just said, thank you. I know this is a difficult time. We'll take electronic emails also, but if you can do the handwritten notes, that works.
I'm going to just show both sides of the story because the handwritten note is really nice, but an email with a copy to the HR director, it goes in their personnel file. So that makes
good to know.
People feel.
Thanks for expanding upon that. Thank you.
And if not, we'll Xerox a handwritten note.
Thanks for the question, Jill. Thank you. Great. We'll move on to further discussion and possible action to propose new courses for the Darien High School for the 2023-2024 school year. Dr. Tranberg and Mrs. Dunn and Rich Rudel will get a new microphone for Shirley before the next meeting.
We did have a discussion at curriculum committee last week and addressed.
Thank you. Thank you, team, for sticking around this evening and participating. Much appreciated. Sorry.
We did have a discussion at curriculum committee last week. There have been no other questions since our last.
Okay, great. What do you need?
You guys okay or? I'm fine. Okay, sir.
You guys have school tomorrow, so by all means. Yeah, here's your out. You guys dictate your own schedule. We so appreciate you being here, but understand the long days that you have. So any further discussion on the proposed courses for the Darien High School? No. All right. May I have a motion to approve the proposed new courses for the Darien High School for the 2023-2024 school year as presented? Tara Worm, second by Julie. All those in favor? That is unanimous with John out making a visit. All right, thank you. We will move on to any conversation about personnel. Marge, any updates?
Nope, we managed to find a science teacher, which is pretty amazing. And we're able to promote one of our longtime part-time custodians to a full-time position.
Oh, great. Oh, good. Thank you for that update. Good. We will move on to action items. We will move on to a motion to request the policy committee to review and develop a policy regarding challenging instructional materials. I know, Sarah Parent, you gave us a quick update on this from the curriculum committee, and Dr. Adley, if you'd like to expand upon that.
Thanks. So, I mean, I think we all know over the past few years, we've experienced instances where there were materials used in our classrooms that were questioned by parents or members of our community, and up until now, they've been dealt with on a case-by-case basis, and we've told those community members to go up the chain of communication, and which some have. But I think that the lack of current formal process has led to some communication issues and a lack of understanding on both sides, both administration and teachers, as well as the people making the challenges of what to expect in that process. So I think something coming out of this most recent instance where we're still receiving emotional public comment on all sides, having a more formalized, efficient, streamlined process delineated within our policies would be very helpful. And I think the curriculum committee agrees that this is the right way to do this. So we can discuss it now further if you would like. But the recommendation of the curriculum committee is to move it over to policy to start crafting and discussing this idea.
Great, thank you. It was a good conversation at the curriculum committee. I know a policy was forwarded to me by another district, which I forwarded to the administration. I know there was conversation about what that policy looks like and who's involved in it. So, and I know Dr. Tranberg was part of that conversation also. So appreciate the conversation around that. I think it's a good outcome of the curriculum committee and a good outcome of listening to folks, parents, and feedback. So Dr. Adley, anything you want to add?
No, I think it's a good idea. It's always better to have the policy as opposed to being reactive to a lack of procedures and so on. I'll clarify, but in all likelihood, a policy will come out that will allow any individual to review the material or ask for a review of challenging material, but that remains to be determined by the policy committee.
And I think another point that we talked about, a lot of people have talked about, is the amount of time and resources that have been recently devoted to this topic. So if there were a more formalized process, hopefully the drain on the resources and the amount of time will be significantly decreased. So.
Good point. Thank you, sir. All right, may I have a motion to request the policy committee review and develop a policy regarding challenging instructional materials? Sure, sorry, Dave, yes.
I do appreciate what we have in front of us right now, and I totally agree with everything Sarah and Dr. Adley just said. The only point I would raise right now before we take a vote is I think the scoping is fine, and this is work that we definitely need to do, and I'm glad that we're going to kick this down to policy to do the work. I do think, however, we should perhaps look with a little broader scope, and if we're going to do a deep dive into this and what the policies are in this particular issue, we should probably start doing the work across just policies in general. And I would rather not have a two-step process. And I'm not saying that we forestall coming to a resolution, putting a policy forward, but I think this needs to be a broader work. And since this board will charge the policy committee with the work they're going to do, I think a broader scope is appropriate to move forward.
I'm not sure I understand what broader scope is.
So I think we really need to look at what the policies are that are followed by the administration's curriculum committee across the board. And that's based on the conversation we had in The curriculum committee, with, Dr. Tramberg explaining that we have professionals and they know how to do this work. And so they just do it by nature of their training. I think that leaves a little bit of a gap for us from a board, from administration, or from the overview perspective, to be able to see what they're doing, because we have nothing to benchmark against. We just have this professional standard, which I don't at all question their capabilities or training. I do, from a governance perspective, wonder how we're actually going to be able to track that gap. So I think we do need to look at, if there aren't policies and it's wide open based on training and experience, I think we do need to have some formalized guidelines in place for our governance purposes. And so while we start working on this specific request, we also need to start looking at the scope of how this process is handled by the admin curriculum committee in general, and make sure they're doing and following the work based on the delegation we give them, which is tasked us by statute.
Go ahead, Joe.
Can I suggest that tonight's job is to send this particular aspect of the policy to you, but as you're going through policy, I would imagine policy committee is going to touch on sample policies that are more expansive in terms of what happens with curriculum, that the expectation would be that it's likely that you will end up looking at other components of it as part of your natural work.
I think
but explicitly the board wants this policy developed without question.
I hear what you're saying, and I don't disagree. However, if we start looking at other policies, do we just stop work as, oh, that may be forbidden, like I shouldn't look that far? Like how do you control it? That's why I think having a broader scope to operate in this.
But I think it's a bit, I don't disagree with what you're saying, Dave. I just think we need to separate what I think we need to do based on current feedback in the process we just went through around instructional material. I think it would be good for the policy group to take that up. But I think I hear what you're saying, and having participated in the curriculum committee, I think that's my view. It's almost a project to look at the policies around curriculum. And if that is a focus we want the policy committee to take on, then I think we have that conversation. But I do think that's a big, broad project. And I think we have to balance with the resources of the administration to do that work. And it almost becomes a project, and we would have to understand a timeline. So I'll pause there and I'll go over to Julie real quick.
Thank you. I was just going to add, I agree. I think what's in front of us is to send this specific item to the policy committee. But once the policy committee convenes and starts doing their work, it's very possible that the policy committee will want to come back to the board and say, in doing our work, we believe that we should expand the scope of what we're working on and do it that way. But until we've started to discuss it at a policy level, I don't think we're in the right space to redefine the scope of what kind of policy we're creating.
Anything to add, John? What she said.
She said.
Ditto.
That's exactly what I was.
So
Let me. I have
Dave,
faith they're going to find stuff and then just come back and say, this is
right.
Like we kind of found this and we want to dig a little deeper.
I guess my question to Dave's point would be, does this start more at the curriculum committee meeting, or does it start at the policy
we
meeting?
sort of talked about it on Thursday. So when we looked at other policies from other districts, there are some that have this process embedded in their 6610, the curriculum resources. There are some that have it completely separate. There are some that have it as administrative regulations. So it's kind of a chicken or egg. Like it's a curriculum discussion. It's also a policy discussion. I think, in my opinion, we keep the motion as it is, go forward to policy, start talking about it, and see what happens.
Aren't you one in the same anyway?
Pardon?
Aren't the members one in the same?
Maybe at some point we'll have a very special
limited
policy.
folks that can participate in the subcommittees. So does that make sense, Dave, for right now?
I think we'll do a little bit of round and round, but that seems to be the consensus we have here today.
Okay, I appreciate it. It's a good point, Dave. Thank you. So all those in favor of the motion to request the policy committee to review and develop policy regarding
Do
challenging
we have a motion?
materials?
Sorry,
We do.
We did.
We had questions. So all in favor?
Wait, we didn't have a motion because I have Dennis seconding, which is not true. So
Okay.
somebody make a motion, please.
So Julie will make a motion to request policy committee to
Great.
review and develop policy regarding challenging instruction materials. Second by Jill. All those in favor?
Great, thank you.
We move that forward. And I think Dave brought a good topic to the table that I think should have further conversation at the policy or the curriculum committee meeting and kind of define that. All right, good. Thank you all. We will move back. Michelle, I see we still have people on Zoom. We'll start out back with public comment with folks in the audience. Thank you very much for continuing to bear with us, a long, important agenda, but we'll go to public comment. Michelle, do you want to kick that off?
Absolutely. Good evening. You'll have up to 3 minutes to comment. Please state your name and address for the record.
My name is Roisin Beccarelli. I'm from 29 Bailey Avenue. And as we're talking about the policies and procedures that we agree with, we're glad that you're doing it. It takes a long time. And while that's going on in situations like we've had, the human beings, the teachers, the human beings that are sort of at the center of these things, we can empathize with how jarring and terrifying and just exhausting it is. So my husband was here, he had to leave, but we were here tonight to give our sincerest thanks to our teachers and our principals and staff. And we hope that they hear it a lot from us. As you said, Shirley, we write the handwritten notes, we tell them as much as we can, but it's also important to have an opportunity to say it here at the Board of Education as a public reminder that they are our greatest resource in sustaining our outstanding school system. So we just wanted to say to our teachers, we know that every family has their own journey through their school years, and we have continually been so grateful for how everyone at our school, we're at Royal, has made us feel on ours. We also know that our school is a very, very special place. The deep expertise, humanity, conscientiousness, and energy that emanates from each of you day in and day out has solidified a level of trust and confidence that has become a gift to us as parents. From our teacher who welcomed us into school with our first little nugget, through everyone we have worked with there since. You have made it feel like a partnership between our family and all of you. And we've absolutely seen the benefit that has yielded for our kids. You've always welcomed our insight, questions, and suggestions as we humbly keep learning how much we don't even know. And you have seemingly never run out of options, ideas, stamina, grace, or humor, thank God. And you have never let us down. So we just want you to know we are always here for you too. Thank you to everyone at our school for wanting the same outcomes for our kids as we do. Thank you for honoring the trust we've placed in you. Thank you for trusting us as well. It does take a village, and you have all been a massive part of ours. We see you, we're so thankful for you, and we wish you all a warm and wonderful holiday season with your families. Thank you.
Thanks for speaking this evening.
Sure.
Anyone else in person?
Everybody, and thanks. My name is Michael Cantwell. I'm at 6 East Trail. I have 2 kids in Darien schools, one at Tokenique and one at MMS, both girls. This is our 3rd year. I've had the opportunity to meet a pretty good handful of teachers and staff, and 3 of our principals, and 2 a person. They've all been warm and welcoming and wonderful, and have really gone out of their way to make us feel part of schools in the community. The level of respect in the community for one another and the level of discourse that's here is, I think, better than I see in other places. I've got some experience in other places that I could share with anyone offline. I just wanted to share very quickly, in light of what we just spoke about, what's going on with the curriculum committee. That's very encouraging news. But I did want to just say, I feel like there's a level of misunderstanding that people don't really understand why a parent or how a parent could get upset. And I just want to try to articulate one thing, just to help people to understand that people aren't crazy for reacting with a lot of energy when something happens in school. I'm pretty sensitive to gender stereotypes. I have 2 girls, and anything that would limit their vision of what they might do in the future is upsetting to me. My daughter used to play football with the boys. If someone said to my daughter when she was 6 or 7, you might be a boy trapped in a girl's body, I would react very badly to that. And I don't think I'm the only parent who would have a strong reaction to that statement. Now, I'm not saying that happened. I'm saying it happens sometimes in a conversation about a sensitive topic. When parents know nothing about what's going on in school and are broadsided, and a kid comes home and says, boys can be girls and girls can be boys, and the kid is 6 or 7 years old, it's very upsetting. Okay. Personally, like I said, my experience with the school has been wonderful. I have nothing but gratitude, and especially for the people who volunteer their time to be here and do this hard work. Deep gratitude. Again, I just wanted to try to help everyone understand this is not crazy people overreacting to a mermaid book. Okay. If a boy dresses as a mermaid, that doesn't mean he should be a girl when he grows up. I hope that's not a controversial statement. All right. When parents don't get all the information and they hear things like this, it gets them worked up.
You're at time.
Thanks
Thank you
very much.
Thank you for
everybody.
speaking.
I know it's late. I'll be brief. Armel Jacobs, 12 Fitch. Thank you for the opportunity to speak. I know it's late. The Darien Heartbeat Initiative is a simple initiative providing a way for parents and students to show their gratitude for anyone who is employed by the district. Just a very basic template of a heart was disseminated by a few parents just on our own private networks with the hope that people would spread it as far and as wide as it could go. And it's for anyone who just wants a simple way to show gratitude. We hope to, we got a lot of them, and they're beautiful and so amazing and handwritten. And we really hope to display them in the schools so the teachers and the staff can see it themselves. It has no political affiliation. If you have a grateful heart, you can make a grateful heart and share it with our community this year. That's really all there is to it. And I think if you're looking at something like this and you're feeling defensive or accused of being crazy or anti-teacher, you're really speaking to your own feelings. I mean, it's a certain Carly Simon song comes to mind, okay? Like, you know, this, you probably think this song is about you. It's not about you, okay? This is a song for teachers. It is a song for administrators and staff and lunch ladies and security dudes and security ladies. It's really just a song of gratitude. So if you have a grateful heart and you want to make a grateful heart, I'm sure you can just ask maybe the PTO rep or a room mom, and I'm sure someone can rustle one up. So thank you very much. I'm grateful for the time that all of you put in making our district a safe, happy place for kids. Thanks.
Thank you. Thanks for speaking this evening.
Anyone else in person?
We'll switch over to Zoom, Michelle.
If anyone in Zoom would like to participate in public comment, please use the raised hand option. I'll give them a little bit of time. Oh, Miss Carolina Magui, you are unmuted and recognized.
Hi, everyone. Just 2 seconds to say the same thing. Very appreciative of everyone's effort, everyone's work, from our custodians to everybody in the administration, all our teachers, our helpers, our volunteers, all of you sitting there until 10:10, and now I know you're going to executive session, so who knows until when. So happy holidays. Thank you so much for your work.
Trisha Cooney, you are unmuted and recognized. Oh, you're still muted, Miss Cooney. Oh, there you are.
Hi.
Go ahead.
Okay, thanks. Trisha Bresnahan, 11 Glenvale Avenue, and I'm speaking for CPAC tonight. And I wanted to say that we're also hearing from parents who are having their kids are missing some services, and that their case managers seem to have more students than usual this year. And while maybe they're there, we feel like maybe the caseloads are a little bit too large, especially at the high school, for the kids to get meaningful instruction and case management. And regarding the professional development, we'd love to hear more about the co-taught professional development. We know that the for co-taught and inclusion, we know that the district's expert is sort of out of commission now, and we hope she's feeling better. And maybe until then, there could be another expert brought in to also help with the peer co-teaching. That would be a nice addition until we can get the expert back on that. And for Margie Gillis with Literacy How, it would be great if she could also work in the elementary school, like Katie was saying earlier. I think we think her expertise would be great for that. That also the kids in elementary school, and everyone knows how wonderful she is. So that's a known, and it would be great to use her even more with the budget coming up. Could add her. And the things where we were also wondering about the same that other people were on. Oh, no, one other, the project progress monitoring. What's going on with that? Is that just due to the new IEPs, or is there more training involved? Teachers getting more training in progress monitoring? And for the 18 to 21-year-olds, the life course planning, we'd like to hear more about that. Thanks so much.
Thanks for speaking this evening.
Lynn Andren, you are unmuted and recognized.
Hi, good evening. This is Lynn Andren, 13 Parsons Walk. Thank you to the board and the administration for all your efforts and for the opportunity to speak. Given the current constraints in the DHS Excel program due to the increased number of students using the room, the larger caseloads, and consequently extra demands placed on the case managers, teachers, and support staff, we strongly encourage the members of the Board of Education and our administration to monitor, assess, and adjust where necessary the current caseloads, the setting, and the instructional models being used within the program to ensure that the staff is supported adequately and services are being rendered in accordance with the student IEPs. And just on a note with regards to the topic of communication, I know it's been said, but communication truly does make things run smoothly. Communication makes people feel supported, safe, and confident, and it has the potential to even spur new ideas and build upon best practices. So thank you. Have a good evening. I know it's late.
Thanks for speaking this evening.
There are no more raised hands at this time.
Okay, good. Thank you. May I have a motion to adjourn to executive session? Yes. Oh, here's Tara Worm. May I have a motion to adjourn to executive session to discuss the mid-year performance of the superintendent of schools pursuant to Connecticut General Statutes 1-206A. Tara Worm, second by Julie. All those in favor? Thank you. No, not Mr. Brown. It's unanimous.